everybody. Welcome to a reading of the Belongg Book Club. We are doing this session for the second anniversary of decriminalization of homosexuality in India, the 6th September 2018 judgment of Section 377. And we're also now today speaking to Parmesh Shahani, who is the founder of Godrej India Culture Lab. And he's also recently written a book called Queeristan, which I actually have today. Yes, both of us can hold it. Yeah, perfect. So Queeristan is a book about LGBTQ inclusion in the Indian workplace, and I recently got a chance to read it. And it speaks about a lot of interesting things, and that's what we're going to speak to Parmesh today about. And it means it also aligns with Belongg's values and visions, and that's exactly why we thought it would be apt to do this, because the book speaks a lot about micro-revolutions, speaks about policies, speaks about Parmesh's personal journey, also speaks about what LGBTQ inclusion in the corporate world should look like. And interestingly, it goes much, much beyond what any of us could imagine. And Parmesh, that's what I was going to actually, my questions are also going to be like that. The first thing I was actually going to ask you about is, so your book is divided into 4 parts, and you speak about, you start talking about your personal journey, and then it goes on to talk about policy. So it actually brings in the personal is political narrative, right? So I actually wanted to understand from you, what has been your thought process like while you were structuring it? And did it come as a natural thought process? Did the thought come naturally, or what exactly went in to just thinking about the structure of the book and how it flows from one section to the other?
Yeah, so thank you. First of all, I just want to thank everyone at Belongg, Nirat, and the whole team. You all have been amazing. And you all are listed in the book as a resource at the end.
I saw that, yeah, the DNI resources.
Yeah, and I really like how you all have grown so much over, the past few months. It's like every week or month, you all are doing something new and exciting.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
just,
you. Thank you for all the support, actually.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So I'm very happy. The structure of the book was written with great intent, because the book was written very much as a manual and as a kind of advocacy guide, primarily for companies, students, people involved in business who are trying to maybe, who I hoped would use it as a guidebook to creating a more inclusive workplace and, society and country at large. And then of course, it has other audiences as well. And one of the pleasures since the release has been to see how many different audiences have embraced it. So it's still surreal that, as of yesterday, it was number 1 on the gender list. It was number 1 on the HR list. Right. And, very different, because, the gender list has, humanities, people reading it, right? Students, people interested in the humanities. And the HR list is very clearly, there's no other book which was spanning these lists. And that's gratifying, because that's one hoped that it would reach its audiences, and it feels very good that it does. So the aim was to structure it as a very different kind of business book, a business book that people can use, but also a business book which gives you the context, which gives you the background, a business book which is written like no other, which is deeply personal. And takes people reading it on this journey as well, right? So it starts with my own personal journey, because I really wanted to put people right in the middle of it, right? It just puts you in the middle of the pool, like there you are, you're in my world. And to give the readers this sense of familiarity, the sense of that they know me, and they're going on this journey with me, through my life in the past few years at Godrej. The second part of the book gives you the context of what it means to be LGBTQ in India, because I realized while writing it that a lot of people didn't know, a lot of straight people didn't know, but actually a lot of queer people also, we don't know what is the law, what are the laws that impact us, what are our multiple histories, what are the range of terms that we call ourselves, right? So there's a whole chapter on LGBTQIA, the entire Hijra Kothi, and so many other wonderful frameworks that we have to describe our own selves. And there's a very important chapter on family, on how important family is. And I wanted to put this entire context even before the kind of business parts come in. for anyone reading it, they understand, not who I am, why I'm doing this, what our community is, and why the second part of the book matters, which is the business case for inclusion and what people can do. And even over there, it's got lots of statistics, lots of case studies, but I think what really makes it, different are the stories, because you understand the impact that inclusion can have, on someone like a Samyukta Vijayan who blooms at Swiggy, on someone like a Mohul Sharma, who's a trans man who's employed at Lalit. And when Lalit, his employer supports his entire surgery, what that does to Mohul's confidence, loyalty, and how Mohul's career is flourishing, right? And Anubhuti, a Kusuma Vijayan, who's now at, Kusuma Krishna, who's now at Intuit, right? So many of these personal journeys where I wanted to show people that it's not just about the statistics, it's about, our stories as well, right? So many personal stories. And I kind of wanted to parallel these in the previous section, the stories of parental acceptance of, say, a Ghazal, and Abhina, and so on, and kind of parallel those with an organizational acceptance.
Right.
To show the readers that, ultimately a good organization should act like a good parent. We want to embrace our employees like we should embrace our children. We want to create an organizational atmosphere like we want to create a good family atmosphere. And we want to create all the conditions for our employees to flourish and to be literally, the best versions of themselves, not out of any sense of benevolence or we are doing this order, for our own interest.
Right.
And so the business case in the book is that you are being inclusive for your own self. It's going to make you more money. It's going to make you more innovative. It's going to help you attract the best talent. Ultimately, it's win-win. And in that process, queer employees also flourish, right? So it's, the structure was very much guided by the aim. That I wanted to move people's hearts as well as minds. And most business books tend to work on people's minds.
Yeah.
So which is why it's unique, right? Because it's very Bollywood. It's got songs, it's got dances, it's got dreams, it's got people stories, and yet the core of it is business.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to point out. Like, if you start reading the introduction, you're reading about Hema Malini, and you turn the book 200 pages later, and we have what to do step-by-step process. And I'm just like, okay, this is so interesting. I haven't seen a book that ranged, like the range of a book, the book is so wide. So I actually have a follow-up question since you mentioned so much. So it's obviously, from whatever you said and what I could read, it's a very extensive book. At least the subjects that you tried to cover were very broad. What could you not manage to put in would be my question. Like, was there something that you could read that you really wanted to put in there and you couldn't because of an editorial call or because it just got too many things in there?
Yeah. So the original length was double, actually. And with my incredible editors at Westland, we had to kind of sculpt out parts. Literally, there's lots that was sculpted out. And no writer likes to leave out things, but ultimately we did not want, although A Suitable Boy is one of my favorite books, we didn't want 1400 pages. So it's still, even with sculpting so much, it's like big and it's a proper book.
I managed to get the last copy that was available, by the way, from the Green Park Midland store.
So good.
Yeah.
And so we had to leave out a lot. We had to leave out case studies, we had to leave out people, we had to leave out some stories. A lot of stuff goes into the references. So for, larger things, there are footnotes, etc. that if people, and also, I've written it also very much like that as a reference book also, right? For academics, for people who might want to use it to further scholarship. So a lot of that kind of went into footnotes and people can refer to it when they want. We'd also to leave out a lot more of my personal bits because the book had a lot more of, my own journey and also the style. I wanted to write in a very colloquial, are chalo, are this, are that. And so that was a tussle with the publishers. saying, ultimately it's a business book.
Yeah.
Don't think you're Shobha Day. I mean, so how to like, and I love Shobha, of course. And I was, I'm not Shobha Day, I'm Shobha Gay. But so yeah, I mean, any writing process, I mean, any publishing process. But this is also very important for Westland, right? Because this is the first business book. And they were really going out on a limb with this kind of business book.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately what has come out in its sculpted version is useful.
Yeah, definitely. So that actually brings me to my next question, is that you speak a lot about, in the first half of the book, you speak a lot about what has been your personal journey like at different corporates, like whether it's Mahindra or Godrej, or how it became about pushing for inclusion for you at these different places, right? My question would be, we are looking at this book post 2018, 6 September, and it's been 2 years almost, and you speak a lot about the years of work that you were doing before. So do you think the last 2 years could be a much better propeller than all the decades were before, with respect to the inclusion? And how much is the law making it easier for people to accept these policies more widely in a corporate world?
Yeah, so sure. I think the 2018 Supreme Court judgment has unleashed a tremendous amount of positive energy all across, across the spectrum, right? Which is why I kind of end the book with this really, really hopeful section called Welcome to Queeristan, right? Where I talk about so many changes that are taking place. But also it's important to note that, this judgment has also come after years of work of incredible activists, of incredible writers, of incredible NGOs, of lawyers, right? So it's, people have been struggling for decades across the country, just across, whether it's activists like Ashok Rao Kavi or Pawan Thal or Ramki, or, authors like Maya Sharma, Ruth Vanita, Salim Kidwai, Dev Dutt, so many, right? Whether it's lawyers over the years, whether it's Anand Grover, whether it's Menika, Arundhati, Saurabh, so many people like Anjali Gopalan of Nazik. There are so many queer icons that we've had over the years, right? All the way back to Siddharth Gautam, filmmakers like Riyad Bhatia, and so it's so many. So I think it's very important, and which is why I've kind of interspersed, all these individuals through the book to recognize that the progress we are doing now is very much on the shoulders of those who came before us. So I think it's important to honor, our queer heroes of the past. Having said that, certainly the 2018 verdict has unleashed so much positivity in the corporate world, simply because I've always said that I think Indian companies are not homophobic. Indian companies are just ignorant. And one of the reasons is because they're not familiar, they're not aware. People don't know enough queer people. So Godrej's journey, as I talk about at the beginning of the book, began because I just stood up and I asked, and I said, do we have this? And they said, oh, no one's asked for it before. It's not like we didn't want to do it. So their journey began simply because someone just asked. And a lot of other Indian companies are like that. And what has happened after 2018 is a lot of those who were fence sitters, who were fearful, who were like, and see, there was no connection between 377 and companies being inclusive. But so many companies imagined that this law is there, now we don't want to do anything. They were operating out of fear and ignorance. So the law going away has unleashed all their good intent. So now they're like, chalo, law is not there. Now we can show our inclusive side to the world.
Right.
So there has been a huge positive outpouring at the corporate level, right?
Right.
Even otherwise, and I just want to take you through some of the amazing changes taking place all over India, right? So many small town queer events are happening. Raipur Pride Mart in Chhattisgarh, Awadh Queer Literature Festival in Lucknow, right? All over the country, not just in like Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. Brilliant regional organizations like Zukia in Assam, all in Manipur, Grace Banu, who works on trans rights now in Tuticorin, Queerabad in Ahmedabad, Queerala in Kerala. I mean, so many, right? So many new places which are being built. Aicha Ghar, that Gauri Sawant is building in Maharashtra for old queers, right? Prince Manvendra is building something similar in Rajpipla. so many incredible queer spaces: Dalit Queer Project, Chinky Homo Project, Queer Muslim Project, Pink List, Queer Hindu Alliance. So many of these intersectional organizations that are coming up, fueled by young people, right?
Yeah.
So many foundations that are coming up, archives like Kamra, Keshav Suri Foundation, so many more foundations are coming up, parents coming up like the Swikar Group, queer visibility across the spectrum, books, movies, music, so many queer champions, whether it's Jyoti Chand, Narthaki Natraj, who the Indian government honored some years ago, right? Queer politics, so many like, Disha Pinky Sheikh is a spokesperson of the Vanchit Bahujan Agadi. Apsara Reddy is a spokesperson of the All India Mahila Congress. And, you're seeing more and more politicians, straight politicians acknowledge and bat for queerness, right? Some years ago, it was only Shashi Tharoor. But over the years, there have been so many politicians across the spectrum, whether it's Gautam Gambhir from BJP, whether it's Kanni Mozi of DMK. So I'm seeing post 2018, I'm seeing across the spectrum. So what is happening in business is, I mean, one part of the change that is happening. There's a lot of change happening across society. And I think it's not just the 2018, it's a 2014 verdict, the Nalsa judgment verdict. It's a 2017 right to privacy verdict. This is 2018. All have kind of propelled this change in society, which I'm actually seeing throughout. I mean, just last week, there was a Transgender Welfare National Board announced. Maharashtra announced this Transgender Welfare Board last month, and states like Tamil Nadu, etc., have had it already. So much change happening there as well. So I'm, I think this moment is really, really important. And this book comes out, I think, at this moment to kind of capture the zeitgeist and to say, here's what we can do next.
Right. Thank you so much for that answer. I'm going to borrow some words that you mentioned here. You used the word corporate India was probably ignorant earlier, right? So that actually brings me to my next question, which is also something related to pink washing that you spoke about in your book. And I actually want to put this into context of why I'm asking you this question is, we've had a lot of debate over period leaves lately, right? After Zomato had those on their policy, and Kavita Krishnan actually argued that we're looking at workspaces that are built for a certain kind of body or a certain kind of, not even binaries, right? And we are still at a stage in this country where we are fighting for a cisgendered female bodies or a menstruating bodies requirements, right? And that's when I was reading your book and I read the things that you wrote about posh, for instance, of how posh has to be gender neutral, but it isn't in most organizations that you can think about. It's only the women employees who are called in or told about the laws, etc. So how do you envision that? When do you think, or how easy do you think breaking that binary would be going forward to include the LGBT spectrum as well? Because a lot of debate right now is still, unfortunately, at women. So when do we break those binaries? Do you have any opinion on that?
I think it is happening at organizational levels. That's my thing. I mean, I think the changes which are happening in organizations, in homes, in families, and they're percolating outward, right? Change happens in multiple ways and in multiple directions.
Right.
Some changes are guided by the law, which then goes into other parts of our life. Yeah. Some changes are guided the other way. And I would argue the 2018 Supreme Court verdict was also guided because of so many changes that took place in society.
Yeah.
The judges were aware of, right? Judges don't live in isolation in an ivory tower. They read the papers, they see movies like Ek Ladki Ko Dekha or Shubh Mangal Savdhan.
Yeah.
They see that things are happening around them. They see the pride marches, they see accepting parents on TV, in Satyamev Jayate and so on, saying this is my child and I love my child, right? So their views are also informed by that. So I think it works. Change comes from all directions and in multiple ways. Okay. So I think with regard to this, changes are happening within organizations. So Godrej, for example, has, widened its idea of posh.
Right.
Likewise, so many other organizations are doing it.
Right.
One of the things about corporate India, what is interesting is, and which is, I think you need to understand, is a lot of us companies, we compete in the marketplace, but, we collaborate behind the scenes. so many HR teams of companies, right? To give you an example, Godrej and Unilever might compete in the marketplace for soaps or for other things. But our HR teams are constantly talking to each other, pushing each other, saying, we've started this, have you started this? So a lot of these changes happen because of, people collaborating.
Right.
I'm seeing a lot of these changes slipping in. Another thing is, gender affirmation surgery.
Right.
Until 2-3 years ago, companies did not know or were fearful. Or so many companies, when you would say, we need to cover gender affirmation surgery, there would be misinformed people who would ask questions like, "Arey, but then will trans people come and work with us just to take the surgery?" Which is so dumb when you think about it, because surgery is a big thing.
Yeah.
Who would come to take a job just to go through this process?
Yeah.
But, so then you have to say, no, it's, this is the norm now. We are not asking for anything more.
Yeah.
We are just saying the existing insurance policy should cover this same amount, nothing extra.
Yeah.
What you're covering for cis employees, you're just saying that as a trans person, should you wish to avail of it, your insurance covers it.
Yeah.
The only extra thing is, if you're a trans person who's taken gender affirmation, at Godrej and so many other progressive companies, it's 60,000 rupees a year are given for hormones forever.
Right.
Because that's it's not extra, it's what the trans person needs.
Right.
So now, because some companies did it, and because we are talking to each other, other companies are doing it. Now, more and more companies call us and say, "Arey, you are offering it, your insurer agreed." We say, "Of course." Then they negotiate. So the change also happens this way as well. So with regard to period leave, etc., I think it's a question of conversation. It's a question of driving it through these. One is this formal procedures, which I think are very, very important. But I think these informal networks of change, which are happening throughout companies, throughout educational institutions, throughout whatever, are also huge drivers. And I think it's important to have these conversations, because these conversations are being had all over the world, right? Around gender, around, trans versus cis, the kind of, say, outrage that comes up in a J.K. Rowling, talks like a turf. These are conversations that I think are vital and have to be had, saying, in today's world, the idea of gender has expanded. And how can we as organizations understand that, respect that, and create policies and environments, that are safe and empowering?
Right. Thank you so much for that. That actually also brings me to my last question, short and sweet. And also because I know that you've described Queeristan before, but I thought we should speak about it a little more, since I'm also going to borrow from from the prologue of your book and say, now what's next now that 377 is gone, and describe in length what your idea of Queeristan looks like and what it is right now, and also what do you want it to look like going forward.
And people have to read the book for that. If I give everything away, then
you could give little. I think there's so much more in the book that people have to actually read it for. But maybe like bits and pieces of it, or maybe what you dream of it to be.
So I think it's already forming all around us, and that's what I say, right? I told you earlier also about so many incredible positive things that are coming up.
Right.
So to me, Queeristan is an inclusive, intersectional, wonderland that is already forming all around us. And I gave you so many examples. There are so many others, like schools, for example, like Tagore International, or colleges like this, which have queer-friendly academic environments, and all gender hostels and all. So these are not, so the last section of the book is not my imagination.
Yeah.
It's just a culling together of the amazing changes which have already taken place.
Yeah.
So my one thing in that would be that we need to imagine more intersectional queer futures.
Right.
Because I think that is and this is being guided by young people throughout, right? If you ask so many of the organizations I've listed and the people I've spoken to in the book, whether it's Rafael of Queer Muslim, whether it's Aro of Dalit Queer, so many others, are young queer leaders who want to create, who understand that like a more inclusive India is predicated on a more intersectional one, where we understand each other's struggles and join hands together, right? Even in business, right? if you look at, and this is what's exciting, if you look at organizations like Periphery, which works on transgender empowerment and placement. The founder is a straight cis straight woman called Neelam Jain, who left her Goldman Sachs job and understood that that she needs to work on trans issues, right? Alongside other trans people, and help create this new environment, right? So I think one of the good ideas of Queeristan is that, at least that I'm seeing already, is that people are coming across. The other thing is, if we want to imagine a more inclusive queer India, we have to realize that it has to be inclusive on multiple not verticals, but multiple spaces. So ability, accessibility, right? We can't say we want queer friendly but not friendly to PWD. So many people are recognizing that climate change is very important right now. We can't say we want more equality, but then let's abuse our climate, because if we don't have an earth, we don't have this planet left, what is the point of all this change for anyone? So how do we intersect the queer movement with the movement for to preserve our environment? The anti-caste movement and the queer movement, right, for years have gone through similar struggles. How do we recognize solidarities between feminism and the queer movement, right? Which and so many other movements, not necessarily in India as well. So globally, there's Black Lives Matter and so many other social justice movements, right? So I'm seeing the future as intersectional. I'm also seeing the future in which multiple stakeholders come together to solve some of these issues. Because I think our imagination earlier was very much that companies will exist to make money and to be whatever. NGOs will solve some of these issues. The government will, make rules and things like that. I think in today's world, these silos, we need to work across these. So many of these challenges, right? Whether it's climate change, racism, casteism, homophobia, the solutions are, we need to work with stakeholders across these silos and come up with some of these solutions together. You can't find them in these silos. So I think I see a future in which there is a lot of alliance building, across silos for people who want to create, new kind of frameworks. And I'm seeing that happen already. I mean, that's the thing, right? Which is why I also set the book in the corporate world, because I think the corporate world can be such a useful space. If you can have these conversations, if you can create jobs, you can kind of then create the kind of models that you can showcase other institutions and say, look, it's working here, it's happening. Maybe we can use some of these learnings in other spaces. And work on this together out of enlightened self-interest for everyone. So that's the kind of future I'm seeing, where everyone kind of understands that it's something that we need to do together. And we work together out of enlightened self-interest.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. That ends the session pretty well. Thanks for doing this again, and also thanks for the giveaway, Parmesh, that we did earlier.
Oh, that was good fun. I love being part of it, and I just love seeing all the comments, and thanks for everything y'all are doing at Belongg. Really like it.
Thank you so much for all the support as well. Thank you so much for featuring us on in Queeristan. It was really good seeing that paragraph. Thank you so much, Parmesh. Have a good day. Yes, let's end it with that. I love the cover. I looked at it in the dark and it just looked like a 3D thing. And I'm like, this was the intention.
That was the aim. It has to pop.
It has to pop. It does. Thank you so much, Parmesh. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.